Okay, this is something that I found because I was looking for a statistic that I remember that Kevin Samuels had quoted about the average black marriage last 5 years. And a sub asked me to actually find the reference, and I was still looking for it, but actually find a reference of that fact that the average black marriage lasts 5 years. But I didn't find that. But the thing is, it led me into what I have right now, what's in front of me right now, which is a marriage to divorce ratio in the United States, demographic variation. This is 2018. And this is coming from the Bowling Green State University National Center for Family and Marriage Research. This is the National Center, right? In other words, this is what they do. It's where all the data comes in and they disaggregate the data so that we can kind of understand it. So this is really an official source, but there's certain things in here that kind of stood out to me and kind of shocked me, really. And really, I had to go take a drink and lay down after I kind of realized it. But it's something we always knew. I've said it for many years. When you see it in your face, it's still shocking. Okay, so we're going to go through this. First, we're going to read kind of like the overview, which is the first paragraph, and then we're going to get into what I want to talk about. Okay, marriage to divorce ratio in the U.S. Demographic variation 2018, and it's actually published in 2019. The marriage to divorce ratio was 2.2 in 2018, meaning there were slightly more than 2 marriages for every 1 divorce in the United States. In this profile, we present the marriage to divorce ratio for women across different demographic characteristics: race, ethnicity, educational attainment, and age. In addition to providing women's marriage and divorce rates across characteristics, although the ratios and rates are similar measures, they each provide a unique lens on marriage and divorce in the United States. Thus, we chart both to provide a more nuanced picture of marriage and divorce. The marriage to divorce ratio is calculated by dividing the number of women's marriages by the number of women's divorces for a given population in a given year. The marriage and divorce rates are calculated by dividing the number of women who experienced the event, marriage and divorce, in the last 12 months, by the number of women who were at risk of the event. In other words, the people could possibly get married or divorced, right? For more information on how marriage and divorce rates are calculated, see Charting the Marriage and Divorce in the United States, the adjusted marriage rate, and Charting Marriage and Divorce in the U.S., the adjusted divorce rate. Okay, we might get to that. For more on the marriage divorce rates for 2018, see marriage rates in the U.S., geographic variation 2018, and divorce in the U.S., geographic variation 2018. A marriage to divorce ratio can be over 1.0, even if the divorce rate is higher than the marriage rate, because the rates are calculated using those at risk of experiencing the event in the denominator, whereas the marriage to divorce ratio is calculated using the events, marriage and divorces themselves. Okay, in other words, one is in the denominator the total number of women that are of age versus marriage or divorce, and then the ratio is the marriages and the divorces themselves, if that makes sense. Really like the number 30, like the here with the number 32, the rate, okay, 32.1 is per 1,000 people, per 1,000 women. So in a given year, 32 out of 1,000 women will get married or divorced or something like that. That's what they're talking about. So one is the total number of people in the population, and one is the ratio is one against the other. Okay. Marriage to divorce ratio by ethnicity. All racial ethnic groups had more marriages than divorces. other race women, including Asian, American Indian, Alaska Native, and multiracial women. In other words, the other is all the smaller portion of people, but the ones, the leftover folks, they call leftover women. 3.0, meaning 3 women married in 2018 for every 1 woman who divorced. In other words, we're talking about, when I said the 3.0, or the 3, which is this one, which is that one. In other words, if you look at the ratio between the 12.4, which is the divorce rate, and the 36.6, which is the marriage rate, okay, that's what they mean. The difference between the two is 3.0. The second highest ratio is found among Hispanic women, followed by white. These are the bars, followed by white, and then black women are actually the last. We're going to get to that. So in other words, the highest marriage to divorce ratio was others, which is Asian, American Indian, and multiracial, followed by Hispanic, as we can see. Third is white. And then the last are black people, which is unique. The second highest ratio is found among Hispanic women, followed by white women and black women. But here's the rub. Here's the rub. Women were the only group that had a higher divorce rate than marriage rate. Nearly 31 divorces per 1,000 married women aged 15 and older, and only 17.3 marriages per 1,000 women. Remember why I used to tell you that black women actually get married less and divorce more? It wasn't always that way, but this current iteration, of boomers, Xers, millennials. Now, the Zs and millennials are probably getting married, but you have a whole bunch of boomers and Xers that are getting divorced. So in 2018, your divorce rate is twice your marriage rate. Almost twice your marriage rate. That's 1.5, 1.6 gap. Even though the bars are there, this should be a negative bar. The ratio is upside down. Basically, if you actually extend it, that bar should look like this. It shouldn't be up here. If they did a proper chart, that bar would be negative. This is actually a negative number because these are all positive numbers. This is a negative number. Remember, I said that my mentor, she said, black men and women are organized in reverse order to nature. We're opposite of everybody else. We're opposite of everybody else. Black women think that they're normal, that our culture is normal. Our culture is been devastated. This is what Moynihan was talking about. Moynihan was talking about that. He couldn't understand it, that welfare worked for everybody else, and they kept their families intact. Welfare didn't grow, out of wedlock rates didn't grow, marriages stayed intact for whatever reason. And I have my suspicions, for whatever reason, it doesn't work for black women. And I assert that black women and men were actually forced together. And in fact, you read Diane Stewart's book, Black Love, black men and women were actually forced together. They were forced to get married. They were forced to be in monogamous single family household. Okay. And for whatever reason, we made the best of it. We tried to follow the script, but when an alternative came through, guess what happened? We broke up. Because being together as black men and women is not organic to us. And that's what Moynihan found out. And he said it, because of horrible mistreatment, because of the damage that slavery and Jim Crow had done to black people, they could not function the same way Everybody else does. And still today, people think that slavery and Jim Crow and all that stuff is all in the past. No, it still has an effect on you. Now, I've always said that why are black women the least married and the highest divorced? And every time I've said that, especially the black women, they always snickered. It's always funny to them because in the back of their mind, they said, this Negro does not know what he's talking about. And he's just trying to be mean and talk down and talk bad about black women. And absolutely, this is not the case. It is not the case. I'm not trying to talk down or talk bad about black women. I'm trying to actually identify a problem that is so severe that it should have been addressed 60 years ago, which was attempted to be addressed 60 years ago. But liberal white women and independent black women did not want it to be heard. And something that I've learned about matriarchies, even though they proliferated throughout the world of human race since the beginning of time, right? If you can't attract your men and keep your men, matriarchies actually die. They go extinct. That's the problem. If you can't bring in men, if you can't hold on to your men, your social group is going to die. Your culture is going to die. That's what you see right now in Black America. And this is bad now, okay? This is really bad now. It's only going to accelerate because the marriages of black men and women are actually going to go down. And instead of it being married, the divorces, what you see here, they're going to start to die. And as they die off, this group here is going to shrink. The number of black women married is going to shrink. We're down to 25%. At this kind of marriage rate, we're going to be 17%. They're going to go down another almost 10% as far as the marriage rate. This blows my mind. Black women are divorced almost to the rate that everybody else is married, and their marriages are where the divorce rates are. It's flipped backwards. Does this make sense to you? And black women think that they got it going on. They wish they had something similar. And I might do something similar with a bar chart and put it together, the bar chart, and actually do one for the men because I'm curious about the men. But this is insane. 80% of all divorces are filed by women. This is not a man problem. This is a woman problem. And if what is true about the average length of a black marriage is 5 years, and black women file for divorce at 80%, black men are not the problem. There's no way black men could be the problem, especially when black men only make up 5% of the population. Of the total male population, black men only make up like 11%. So you tell me 90% of the other men are also rejecting you? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Now, Dr. Johnson wanted me to look at some of the other factors. Since we have the paper in front of us, we're going to look at some of the other things here. What I'm saying is, I want you guys to actually lock that in. How the hell black marriage is upside down like this? Why does this exist? They only have 4 categories, right? But they encompass all the women. How the hell are Hispanics that as a group are poorer than black people able to have the second highest intact marriage, even with a large divorce rate? How, Sway? Anyway, let's go ahead and finish this up. Okay, marriage to divorce rate by educational attainment. There are substantial educational differences in marriage and divorce behaviors. The largest difference between those with a college degree or more relative to those with only some college or less. Women with bachelor's degrees had the highest marriage to divorce rate, almost 3 marriages per every 1 divorce, which is something that has been said. This is similar for women with a master's degree or higher. So for most people having Degree means that you're going to get married more. I guess there's more money out there. Women with less than a high school degree or GED and some college had comparable marriage to divorce ratios, about 2 marriages for every 1 divorce. In other words, 50%. These are the bulk. This is where the 50% comes in, right? These people make the bulk of marriages. That's where the 50% divorce rate comes in. Almost 2, right? Those with less than a high school degree or education category to have a higher divorce rate than marriage rate. Okay, people on the bottom that are poor tend to get divorced more. This is almost the same way when you go to age. Okay, these are the bulk. So right here and where the circle is, these are the bulk of the population, right? I would say these are the top, 10 to 15%. Now, this is probably about 70%, and these are people at the bottom. I say about the bottom 10%, right? These people here. So this is about money. This is about money and access and resources. Okay, everybody knows what's the biggest factor in divorce: money. Get marriage to divorce ratio by age group. Now, here's something that we were actually talking about, and this is something that we're going to have to factor in. And I think me, Sister George, and Concrete Rose were actually talking about this 15 to 24, or 18 to 24, is 18 to 25, as they say, about getting married before you know yourself. Okay, and the reason that this is so high is because they no longer make wives, right? They make partners. So if you don't know yourself, and you're trying to find a partner, you have a much higher likelihood of making a mistake, much higher likelihood of picking the wrong partner. Whereas if you look back in time, like prior to, I would say 1970, these were the most stable marriages. In fact, these were the bulk of the marriages from 15 to 24. I think I have to go back and look at it. Prime age, or the peak age to get married back prior to 1970 was, I have to go back and look at it, was for a woman was like 19 or 20. Peak age now, if you look at it, is 31, between 28 and 31. That's how come the 25 to 34 age range has the highest rate of marriages and the highest rate of marriages to divorces. Even though this is skewed, in 2018, there were 14 marriages for every 1 divorce among the 15 to 24-year-old. However, the highest marriage rate was among those aged 25 to 34, so with 75.3 marriages per 1,000. Okay, because the peak move. Okay, number one, teen pregnancy was killed for the most part, because they made a concerted effort to bring down teen pregnancy, and also teen marriage. And they actually pushed women to get more education, push women into college. So that's going to push the marriage rate up, because college age people, or people that do go to college, tend to get married later. But all the negatives as far as divorces, then this is where the black folks come in. Those aged 45 to 54, 55 to 64, 65 and older, all had more divorces than marriages in 2018. The only 2 positives were the ages of 15 to 35, okay, which is why we say that most women should get married before 30. The peak age to get married should be 26. And we're going to have to do something to fix this, because what happens when you get married at 35, which we call the wall, fertility goes down. And the likelihood of you getting divorced within 5 or 6 years actually increases. As you can see by these rates, so you might stay married a little longer, but guess what? Your divorce rate's going to be higher. That's something that's obvious. That's something that's obvious according to the stats. Even though peak age to get married is basically between 25 and 34, which is 31. Second, like look at this. Second is 35 to 44 and on down. Basically, if you look at it, about the marriage rate in 15 to 24, right, it's 23. This used to be the highest. Now the only people that actually get married less than the young folks are actually the old folks. You don't even get down to below 23 until what? Until you get past 55. Looks like the Z's and the old folks, the Z's and the boomers have a lot more in common than Gen X and millennials. This is Gen X and millennial. And you see the marriage rates skewing older and older and older. Pretty soon, 35 to 44. If this trend keeps up, 35 to 44 will swap places. This here, 75.3 used to be here, 15 to 24. But this feminized age has pushed marriage later and later and later. And now a lot of people are encouraging women to get married after 35. Interesting. Anyhow, I think this has gone on long enough. I think I made my point. This is just an added bonus. I'll put the link to the paper in the description if I remember. If not, remind me. It's actually a fascinating website if you guys want to go to and actually peruse around. A lot of the marriage and divorce rates that we'd like to get a hold of, that we read on Black demographics, actually come from here. It's very, very interesting to go in and actually start reading the papers, and maybe we can actually do some good work as far as charting. But I do want to chart the same thing. If I can find it as far as race is concerned, demographic with Black men, I would love to chart it. I don't think it exists, but I would love to try and chart it, because I think it would be interesting to actually compare Black men to Black women as far as marriage and divorce. It'd be a fascinating study. Anywho, that's all I got for this one. It's BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.